Why, hello. It is I, Chris Brogan, creating for you this show called The Brief, in which I find stories that I think are interesting, that I've been reading and following, and share them with you and give you a little bit of an insight on why this might help you in some way. This story is created on Facebook Live using Facebook Live for Mac. The best way to do it is this way right here using Ecamm Live. Check that software out. It's how I make this show happen. If you want to follow along with me and you want to check out the links for yourself, I make that easy. Go to chrisbrogan.com/CBM and you can see what's going on and follow right alongside me. Nothing wrong there. All fun and easy. What's our first story of the day? Well, I don't know if you've heard of the Venmo app that PayPal has, and it's been a way that you could send money really easy, somehow even easier than PayPal, which I don't get. But hey, what do I know? But now Venmo is going to let you pay online at millions of U.S. retailers. So there's a lot of opportunities here where this might actually start moving into stores. So what's going on is that this payment method is now getting accepted in a lot more places. And I always find that interesting. I think that whenever we see kind of shifts in payments in retail and online retail, we should start looking at that because we should start thinking, what else does this change? Where else in my personal ecosystem do I need to know about that? Speaking about changes like that, it looks like Target and Google are now adding voice-activated shopping so that you can use Google Assistant and be fulfilled through the Target system and all that to order stuff that will show up through Google Payments. I don't remember what Google's thing is called, Google Express, and get a 2-day delivery. So this is now they're competing with She Who Shall Not Be Named, but now it's kind of cobbled together in a way that they think might be really useful to people. I find that interesting because it's the ongoing war to say, oh crap, Amazon's done it and they've done it better. How do we get in on this? And I also find it interesting because you aren't in that. Like if you're selling something that's sold in stores and you don't have a way to get onto this voice-driven, communications-based system of the web. I mean, if you're way back at should my website look good on a mobile phone, think about how far behind you are now with regards to how do we do voice apps and stuff like that. So that's what's next in one way. Conversational design, bots, that sort of a thing. And how do you get platforms like Google to pay attention to you? Because I know that Amazon, you can have products in the Amazon store, which then you can order through Alexa, but then you need to look at some of those other platforms as well. Speaking of Amazon, one interesting way that they look at their business is they ask, how can I earn more customers? How can I earn more customers? One new way they've done that is they have a way to help teens shop independently. This is that they can now have their own teen account with limited purchasing options, and the teens can sort of basically put things in their account, and then it'll text the parent's or guardian's phone and allow you to approve this with just a simple Y, or go and take a look and review the order that the person's made. What makes that interesting? I mean, on one hand, it's just sort of like having a wish list inside of Amazon, but it's autonomous. The teen can build their own account, build their own list, build all that stuff, and just have it linked to the family account so you can decide whether or not they want to add stuff in. The interesting challenge here, the point here is that where are we looking to add more potential business and what's that going to do? Albert points out you have to understand how frustrated customers are when they're in a store and you don't have a product that they believe you have. Oh man, I can't tell you how few times I want to actually go into a real store anymore. It's fewer times in a store than online. I can't fathom the use case for going to the store is pretty rare for me. At this point, it's kind of a question of pushing itself the other direction. When would you need to go to a store? Talking about payment plans and stuff like that, though, I'm always talking about things about blockchain. This is an interesting story. Jpmorgan is now launching a payments network using blockchain. So at the same time, these organizations are saying things like Bitcoin is silly. Blockchain, which is the underlying technology below Bitcoin, is something that they're managing and handling. So there's a new payment processing network that's using this technology. Royal Bank of Canada and Australia and New Zealand Banking Group are where they're testing this out. So this becomes an interesting way to look at payment networks, and the fact that yet another larger organization is moving into that space and trying to point that out. Other blockchain-related news, this was interesting to me. Microsoft opens the door to government blockchain use, meaning that they've had Azure and Microsoft has a blockchain platform, but now they're saying that there's some ways that they made it easier for the government to decide they're going to connect in and use this sort of thing. I guess sort of appealing to the standards. If you're not feeling all that confident about what's going on in the land of blockchain and all that sort of a thing, the whole concept that I think is worth checking out, you could go to chrisbrogan.com/blockchain, where I've put together a bunch of information on the underlying information about the blockchain technology. In the 90s, you started hearing about the internet and you brushed it off. You said it was dumb. It didn't make sense to you. You didn't quite get where it was coming from. This is that again, except that you have the chance to be 10 years earlier to finding out that there's an opportunity. So there's a whole bunch of ways that I found to share that information with you. I found a Udemy course. I found a book. I found a whole bunch of videos you can watch, including whiteboard talks and conferences. So there's all kinds of information there. chrisbrogan.com/blockchain. It's just, when I first ever got involved in the internet, I was like, wow, this is great. And everyone was like, I don't know. And when I got involved in podcasting, I was like, this is great. Blogging, this is great. And it took people so long. People said the same thing about Twitter. Oh, Twitter's stupid. And in 2006, I'm like, this is the coolest thing. And it's not that I am right. It's just that every now and again, I find that there's some kind of a technology shift that's going to help in some way to drive better human interactions. Twitter was one of those. Using the internet in certain ways was one. Blogging, media making, personal media making. There's some great, great, great value. To me, this is where this is all going, and that the old platforms and the old systems that are in place right now, they're the same as all the other old platforms. This is, if you're arguing for what's in place, you're arguing for Blockbuster. And the only real constant is change. And so that's why I have this kind of storyline going. This is the sort of information I'm sharing. Speaking about that, there's stuff that I don't understand either. I didn't even know it was out there. Have you, for instance, heard of the app TBH? So there's an anonymous teen compliment app called TBH that Facebook has acquired. It is basically really simple visual polling. And the example, by the way, who has the best smile? Is it Justin Andrews or Chad Simmons or Joseph Peters or Matthew McCarthy? 5 million downloads, 2.5 million daily active users in just the past 9 weeks. And so Facebook saw that. They were like, holy crap, we've really got to take a look at this thing. It's racked up more than 1 billion poll answers since launching in just very limited places in August, mostly from teens and high school students. And it's been on the top of the free app charts for a while. So it's worth taking a look at. And it's more interesting because, one, I'd never heard of it. How would I? Why would I care? I'm not looking at teen app use. But also, when Facebook makes a move like this, what are they saying? They're saying, oh, we want to look at polls a little bit more. Instagram just recently implemented polls. We're looking for faster still ways to connect. And I want to tell you a very personal story like this. Microsoft is holding an event in Cambridge, about an hour from my house. Microsoft's holding this event for an Internet of Things, and you can come and learn about what Microsoft's doing in the land of IoT. The whole concept is that you could go there and learn kind of what Microsoft's take is on that and all that. So I said, oh, that's interesting. I found a Facebook ad. So I click it and I say, I want to go. And then the ad turns into this massive form where I have to talk about what my industry is. It's marketing. It's, all those stupid panels and forms and columns of all the marketing data they could possibly grab on me. So it clearly isn't going to be a fun event where I'm going to go learn something. It's going to be a selling, killing field where they're going to go and try to really, pitch me and get my business and secure my dollars. And it's fine if Microsoft wants to sell, but, I guess even pretend that you're not going to do it. So I don't know. Let's see what Albert says now. Stop, you're making me puke. Teens are doing that app instead of algebra. We're doomed. Oh my gosh. When do kids do algebra? All right, so other news that's worth interesting, conversation about changes in culture. Evidently, according to a very recent poll, freelancers are very sick of being called gig workers. As it stands, there's not an exactly great phrase to explaining freelancers. What's going on in that space is that people who are, so gig worker is tending to refer to people who use specific platforms to make their money. If you're an Uber driver, you're kind of a gig worker because you're tied to the platform. I didn't even know this particular information. The other next piece of this is that there's so much more of this kind of work. There's so much more contract work versus employee work out there. And companies are really working and struggling to find ways to integrate this more and more and more into their organization. but they haven't quite figured out language for it. That is an interesting piece. That we have to pay attention to, because one, we could be using the wrong piece. We can also do all of these situations where how do we figure out how to better work into those economies, and how do we figure out what we could do to communicate with the kinds of people that we need to reach who are in that space. So, for instance, the story I reported a short little while ago was that companies are spending more and more money investing in the technologies to allow in faster freelance workers and all that, because they don't necessarily want to hire full-time jobs all the time. Sometimes they just have swells of power that they need, staffing that they need to handle. This is that story. This one really kind of blew my mind. I had to read it a couple times to think through it. This one, this goes to Albert's point that no one's doing algebra, by the way. It's almost like he set me up for this. Wikipedia's fate shows how the web is endangering knowledge. For the first time in a long time, people trying to join up and help edit Wikipedia is flat or below any previous times in the history of Wikipedia. No one wants to centralize and find all of the web's knowledge anymore. And strangely enough, it has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with whether or not knowledge is important. What it has to do with is that we are more interested in entertainment than we are in learning. We are not seeking knowledge as often as we are seeking entertainment. And this happened long before Wikipedia, but this is just interesting that in this space of democratized knowledge and all that, we are now in a space where people would much rather do anything but spend their time on Wikipedia learning something that they think might be building some value. And as this ties to the next story, Netflix is killing all the rivals in building original content. They reported much higher than normal numbers in their subscriber rates, so much so that people didn't even know what to do on Wall Street. They lost their minds. Tons of money just started flooding back in. Oh, Netflix. And what's going on is that they've left all their competitors in the dust. So many people trying to create new content competition for Netflix are so far behind. This particular article was talking about the fact that a couple different things. They said that one thing Netflix did that surprised everyone was everyone saw what HBO was doing with original content and said, oh my gosh, that looks really hard and really expensive. We could never do it. And then Netflix did it with House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. And everyone said, oh, that's not so hard. And then out of the blue, all of these other companies came along and said, well, if Netflix can do it, so can we, including Amazon Studios, who is doing horrendously with their original content. Their original content is never, ever, ever going to have this story match the same, and they're still trying, but it's just not clicking. And speaking of people trying to make interesting and new and unique branded content, Walmart is going to create a new branded video series pointing specifically to the millennial audience. And this is called something with Amy. What's it called? Amy Upstairs. Oh, Upstairs Amy. And it's here's the thin story premise of this. 3 millennial female characters with the title character Amy having moved into an apartment with her family. Amy develops an interest in her new neighbors and asks her friends to find out more about him when they can make their own series of YouTube videos. All of the characters have an idea of how they envision their life turning out, which contrasts with how their parents grew up. So this is a show that Walmart created so they could show sort of authentic use of Walmart products with a branded show. 1, I shop at Walmart. I have nothing bad to say about Walmart. 2, great idea, just trying to use content to sort of push the values of the company, push something going. 3, it seems like a story about hanging out in apartments. Now, Seinfeld was essentially a story mostly told in an apartment. Friends is a story told mostly in a coffee shop. There's lots of like one-set comedies out there that maybe this show could emulate. But it seems a little rough that, the storyline is focusing heavily on Walmart products, at least as far as I can understand it. I mean, there's product placement and then there's a product-driven show. Knight Rider did it fine with Kit. There's a few other examples of product-driven shows. I just don't know that that's going to really blow the market out. But hey, good for them for trying Walmart and, keep it up. If you want some help, I'm always here to help. All right, if you want to take a look at all these stories for yourself, every single thing I come up with gives a link to what it goes a little further. You go to chrisbrogan.com/cbm and you get all of that information for yourself. That takes you all the various links that I shared and all the information that I found interesting that you might want based on some of the information I found through my reading. If you want to make a show like this for yourself, I use Ecamm Live. It's the best way to do Facebook Live for Mac. Check it out, cbrogan.me/Ecamm Live. If you want to share a story or an idea with me for the show, send it to me, chris@chrisbrogan.com. I love to share what you have. Always grateful to talk with you. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for tuning in for the brief. Catch you later.